But in fact, the climate is changing. In a University of California study, it was noted that 20 to 30% of all the species of plants and animals on the earth could become extinct within just a few decades. Deserts expanding through droughts and heat. And for instance, in Syria, the climate crisis has caused droughts which are making a big refugee crisis. Here the wheatlands have been turned into desert, and the farmers had to leave, go somewhere else where they could survive, so it's a huge refugee crisis. Here in California, up in the Sierra Nevada, in April, there should have been over 6 feet of snow in this meadow, and instead the snow was all gone just last year by April. So of course, our governor declared a huge drought emergency, and we have to conserve water. But this is a 1,200-year drought that we're going through now, and we're still actually in it. Ice and glaciers melting. This glacier in Alaska was gone in just the last 70 years, as you can see, before and after, right? It's turned into a large fjord. So that water goes into the ocean and causes sea level rise. And so cities like Rio or Boston or New York or DC or all around the world, where are the people going to go when their beautiful beach property is turned into just ocean? And in fact, it takes a while for the ice to melt and the sea to rise. We don't know, we can't calculate exactly how long it takes. It's actually taking a shorter time than what we initially thought. But I read a paper in Proceedings of the National Academy of Science a couple years ago by Hansen, and they showed that there is already a commitment for flooding up to 7 feet because of the 1 degree centigrade of temperature, which we already have. It'll take that much time to melt, but we are committed to over 7 feet of sea level rise. And what this means is that 25% of towns like Huntington Beach will be flooded. And also in Stockton, California, 25% of the city will be flooded. Where will the people go? And this is just local, right? Think of Boston, think of New Orleans, think of Miami. Now, what if we had runaway global warming and this led to melting Antarctic, Arctic, Greenland, all the glaciers? We would have approximately 260 feet of sea level rise. And what would this do to the map of America? Well, Florida would be essentially gone. DC and the whole East Coast, Boston, all flooded. San Francisco Bay would be under the sea, and we would have the Gulf of California. Here in LA, we'd have the Bay of LA, and the straits out of Compton here beyond Isla Palos Verdes, and in the Sea of OC, my town, as well as here in Anaheim, would be under the waves. My town would be the Firth of Fullerton. You see that? Coyote Hills here, that would be our beachfront property, and Chino Valley would still be out of the water. We have huge hurricanes like Sandy that flooded New York City, superstorms out on the plains. Here in California, firestorms that are much more severe. And the effects from producing the petroleum and coal, besides mountaintop removal in West Virginia, we have the Deepwater Horizon Gulf oil spill by BP that polluted the Gulf and killed off a lot of life. We have bomb trains, like the derailment of this oil train in Lynchburg, Virginia. Here in Southern California, the Porter Ranch methane gas leak, which released about 25% more methane than we normally do in California in a year, 25% as much. increase, and turns out, well, methane is a worse greenhouse gas than CO2 by about 20 times. The pollution from industry is also quite serious. Besides the smoke and the smog, actually it's this culprit here, this carbon dioxide, which in excess can cause us a problem. It's produced as, one of the products from burning any kind of carbon like coal, oil, or gas. And it is an essential element of life. We are made out of, carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen. But it's an essential element for life. So it's really not a pollutant in the air. It's part of the essential thing that we need to keep the earth going. So I'll talk about the science briefly now. The increased temperature that comes from burning